Fredericksburg was one of the worst defeats ever suffered by the American Army. It all started with the removal of McClellan from command. Lincoln, disappointed with McClellan's indecisiveness and lack of enthusiasm, replaced him with General Ambrose Burnside. General Burnside immediately started a winter campaign against the rebels, arriving at Fredericksburg on November 17th. Surprised by Burnside's sudden appearance, Confederate troops were saved by the Rappahannock River, which temporarily halted Federal forces. Burnside's plan was to build a series of pontoon bridges in order to cross the river. Unfortunately, the supplies needed to build the pontoons were late in arriving by a couple of weeks. Upon hearing news of Burnside's plight, General Lee used the time to entrench his army behind the town. Lee positions Colonel Anderson's artillery on his left flank on Marne's Heights. Also on the heights were Generals Pickett, McLaws, and Ransom, all under the command of General Longstreet. On the Confederate right, under the command of General Jackson, were Generals Taliaferro, D.H. Hill, Early, Stewart, and A.P. Hill. General Hood was in command of the Confederate center. On the opposite bank of the Rappahannock, Burnside was positioning his troops also. Generals Hooker and Sumner were on the Union right, across from Longstreet. On the Union left, under the command of General Franklin, were Generals Reynolds, Gibbon, Meade, and Doubleday. Generals Burns and W.F. Smith were in the Union center. While waiting for the pontoon bridges, Burnside orders General Sumner to deliver a letter to General Longstreet demanding the surrender of Confederate troops.
By direction of General Burnside, I accordingly demand the surrender of your city into my hands, as a representative of the government of the United States, at or before 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Upon receiving this letter, Longstreet urges the citizens of Fredericksburg to evacuate. Shortly after the deadline of 5 o'clock, Union cannons opened fire on the town. A few days later, the pontoon bridges are completed and the crossing of the Rappahannock begins. At first, Confederate snipers in the town prevent the army from crossing. Union guns open fire once again on the town, destroying most of the buildings. Once across the river, Burnside launches 2 attacks against Lee's army, the first at Jackson on the Confederate right and the second against Marne's Heights. Confusion amongst Franklin's men spelled disaster for Union troops, and they were quickly routed by the Confederates. On the other side of the field, things weren't going much better for the Federal troops. Protected by a stone wall and controlling the high ground, Longstreet's troops were virtually invincible. 14 waves of Union troops come at the Confederates, and all are driven back. Not one Union soldier reaches the wall all day. Burnside leads his army back across the Rappahannock in defeat. Union losses number around 13,000 dead, wounded, or missing. The Confederates had 5,000 dead, wounded, or missing. Confederate morale rises and the Union capital is left unguarded a mere 25 miles away. Fortunately for the Union, Lee chose not to pursue.